Shalom Aleichem and a good morning. Heilige, wonderful Chevra. I know I said this last week and the week before online, and Baruch Hashem, the Chevra in person. The Chevra, Baruch Hashem, in person here, right now in this space. And we'll start with our avodah of change and transitioning. Change and transitioning, wherever we've come from in the last few minutes. We were somewhere, and now we have changed from wherever we were to being here. And this nakuda involves an internal change as well, transitioning. And as we've mentioned time and time again, this is a yesod, a basic yesod, that in Torah we want to become always aware of the transitioning. Hilchos Rambam, mezuzah, speaks about how the mezuzah is meant to be a avodah of recognizing transitioning. And this nakuda is not something for naught, because so many people are so good at being human doings. They're doing and doing and doing and doing. Do they ever stop to celebrate their accomplishments? Do they ever stop to notice what they have done? And typically what I find is people are very rich in accomplishments, and they themselves did not notice it, because they've been human doings and less human beings. And one of the nakuda of transitioning, change to transitioning, is recognizing your human beingness. And it's a davar chashuv ma'od, it's very simple, and it's something which is very, very, very important. So this nakuda is something not to take lightly. And the way we do it very simply is just to stop for a moment, and to notice I've transitioned. I was in one space and now I'm in another space. And the question to ask ourselves in the present moment is, what's my tafkid now? As I meet this new space, as I transition, where am I inside? Where am I on the outside? Das tachtoin chitzoni, look around, just notice your space. Das tachtoin pnimi, where am I inside? Where am I inside? What's going on inside? What's going on in my body? What's going on in my feelings? What's going on in my thinking? And spend a couple of moments. I've transitioned. Das tachtoin chitzoni, looking around at all of these beautiful people. And then das tachtoin pnimi, just take note where I am. So it's interesting, even right now as I speak to you, I'm still catching up. I was on the phone before. Somebody called me a few minutes before the shiur, and it was a beloved friend. And I didn't drink enough. I did some exercise, but I didn't replenish my drinking. That voice is coming up. I just had my coffee. Thank you for the coffee, to Rabbi Gerzi for preparing the coffee. So these are things that are going on in real time in the moment, and we can't run away from it. This is something that we have to take note of if we want to become healthier. And as we said, it's not difficult, it's different, it takes effort, it takes remembering, but the reality is a reality. This is how the human being functions. And Torah is the blueprint. Torah knows how we function. And we want to re-educate ourselves back into what it is to be a Tzelem Elokim. So we've taken a moment just to change. We've changed where we were, transitioning into in here. And Be'ezras Hashem, we'll see where this goes. We have a seder, and within that seder there's a certain malleability. Again, this is not a shiur, yet this is not a chabura. So the challenge is on. I just want to start off by thanking the anonymous donor, Baruch Hashem, he's a chassan, Shativne Bayis Ne'eman B'Yisrael, and mamash, he should go from strength to strength. Such a beautiful young man. And his color is a beautiful young girl, and Be'ezras Hashem, they should build happily together. And they should use these teachings to help them in life. I want to as well start off with a couple of points, which I don't usually do. After most of the shiurim, I get lots and lots of questions. And typically what I do is I just answer people either with the email or with the WhatsApp. And I thought maybe I'll do a little bit of a change, and I'll just take a couple of the questions that were asked after last shiur. And a few times people have asked similar general questions. So I just want to play with maybe three questions today. One question was, is there a book, is there a sefer that I could start learning that speaks about the nefesh and das? So one book that comes to mind, I couldn't find my own version, but in the Beis HaMedrash we have it, is called Cheshbon HaNefesh. Cheshbon HaNefesh, the first part of Cheshbon HaNefesh, very clearly speaks about how we have these two sides to us. Again, remember delicately, my beautiful friends, that different machabrim, different mahalchim use different words. Not everyone uses the same words, but we've shared enough where you can pick up the first part of the Sefer and go through it, Cheshbon HaNefesh, and it's really something very, 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 very special. And he goes through a lot of the ideas using slightly different language, but the ideas are the same ideas. This is one Sefer that you can read. It's in English and it's in Lashon HaKodesh. There's a birur. The one I have has a birur, very, very, very nice birur, with somebody who came from the Musa world pre-war. Actually, it's not in print anymore. It's about 70 years old. A Yid who went to America, and he had the mahalach that we're sharing. So Cheshbon HaNefesh, if a person wants to see inside a sefer that speaks around these ideas, specifically Das Tachtoin. Again, we are right now speaking about Das Tachtoin. So in the world of Musa, there was far more of an intentional investigation in Das Tachtoin. So that's the first thing I wanted to share. The second point that I wanted to share was a question that somebody said that they've seen a lot of these teachings in Rabbi Nachman. They've seen a lot of these teachings in Rabbi Nachman about Das and understanding Das. And they asked, does the Baal Shem Tov speak about Das? And another question they asked was, you mentioned before Das and Geula. Das and Geula. So I wanted to bring just to a person's attention, if they would like to read the Hagdama to the Baal Shem Tov al HaTorah. Baal Shem Tov al HaTorah goes into this Nakuda, and it's based on the Toldos Yankov Yosef. But just even in the Hagdama of the Chavrai Kedisha who put together Baal Shem Tov al HaTorah, there were Hasidim of Kamana connected to Zitachov and others, two particular individuals, that they put together the Baal Shem Tov al HaTorah. And in the Hagdama, they speak about the Nakuda of Das, that the Baal Shem Tov said that our avodah is to be Megale Das, and Das and Geula. Das connected to Geula. So Baruch Hashem, the person asked a question about the Baal Shem Tov and about Das and Geula. There's actually a source, a beautiful source, that speaks about both aspects in one place. So Baal Shem Tov al HaTorah, and the Hagdama is a wonderful Hagdama, again, based on a Toldos Yankov Yosef later on in the Sefer, if I believe Parshas Shemos, Parshas Noach or Parshas Lech Lecha. So have a look at that. And one other nakuda, which I think is really important because it came out now, there's a Mechaba, Rav Baruch of Kosov. Rav Baruch of Kosov was a relation to Kitav, to the brother-in-law of the Baal Shem Tov, Rav Gershon Kiteva. He was I think a grand-nephew, or he was a nephew. I can't remember right now, but he was as well connected to Maggid of Mezrich and others. He had the Messiah of what we're sharing. And they've just reprinted this. Yesod HaAvodah, there's two parts to it. This is Yesod HaEmunah. So here as well, especially in the first part of the Sefer, Simonim, Kaf Gimel Talamed, there is an investigation into how we work. What I will say is that it's quite long in its explanation. Reb Baruch of Kosovo, he spends a long time on this, and you have to have the right eyes to look at the text. But for example, Kapshutai, we mentioned we are not relating to reality, we're relating to our interpretation of reality. So this is mentioned, for example, this is mentioned a number of times. This is mentioned a number of times throughout his Sefer, and he's trying to really go into this, how the Lashon that he uses, the Chushim, we relate to our Seichel. We relate to our Seichel relating to Gashmius, not the Gashmius itself. He brings this in a number of places, and what he's asking of us eventually is to realize that we have to understand the Hishtalshlus, the Orein Sof, coming down, understanding the Hishtalshlus, and when we understand the Hishtalshlus, when we understand Pnimis HaTorah, then we can, our Hanhaga is different. We relate differently. So he has a number of places, Hadimyon, Mitzayr, Rak, Tziur, Gashmi, that we only are relating to what we experience in the physical world. And then he goes on to say that the hasaga of the seichel is only mizbainen on what is taken in from the chushim. So he goes through this very beautifully, but this is far more of an in-depth understanding, and probably like anything, to have aselech harav, to have a teacher to learn it with. And Baruch Hashem, I was zeicha to go through this with my teachers, Cheshbon HaNefesh, but Yesod HaAvodah was a classic by Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac Shapira, who was a Talmud Muvak by the Piasetzner Rebbe. And this is something so important to realize. Everything that we are discussing it needs to connect. It needs to connect to the trunk of Torah. It needs really to connect to the trunk of Torah, and to realize, as we mentioned, and I could have been a number of shiurim ago, that we front end have to realize that when we're dealing with Torah, avodah, gemilos, chasadim, it's built off a back end of how we function. How we function. When I spoke to somebody yesterday, he's going back, he was here on a break from the place where he was studying in America, and he's going back today, and he was saying how, he feels stuck. He feels stuck, and he knows this system that we are sharing. He knows this mahalach that we're sharing, and it's very interesting because I need to just remind him that you're relating to your hirhurim in the present moment. You're relating to your thoughts in the present moment. And this is another question. So we had the question about what svarim we could learn, and about the Baal Shem Tov and Geula and Das. That Das is the ikka of our avodah. The ikka of our avodah in this generation is to megale Das. Why? Because we live better. We live better. And we live better together. We can collaborate and contribute. Something so important. And then what this Yid was saying yesterday, and this is a message I got from someone, if you could say in one sentence, well, I should remind myself to get into a state of das, I would say that I am relating to my thoughts in the present moment. That's it. I'm relating to my thinking in the present moment. Kupshutai. I'm relating to my feelings in the present moment. I'm relating to my bodily sensations in the present moment. Just that itself can give you an awareness. And then one more nukuda that was brought up that's very much connected to what we're speaking about here is that there was a video, somebody made a short, I don't know what a short is, but 4 minutes about Eretz Yisrael. And a number of people asked me about that, about not everyone is meant to be in Eretz Yisrael yet. And this, in the shiur, it says in the description on the YouTube what we were speaking about. And people don't always read descriptions, I get it, and people don't always listen fully to what's being said, I get that as well. And that's why I repeat myself, because people don't hear. So I was saying that people shouldn't be here, not everyone is zeicha to be here in Eretz Yisrael yet. Why? Because as we know, we have the Gemara in Pesachim, and the Gemara in Pesachim in 78 or 87 speaks about this nakuda of how we go into exile and we pick up converts and baalei tshuva, and we then find our way back to Eretz Yisrael. There's a bir in Itzaisis Kedusha. There's a lot to say on this. And the point of what I was reflecting upon to a question that was asked was that we have to be baalei das. We have to be baalei das. We have to be able to observe. We have to see where somebody is and to note where they're coming from. And I think the part of the story with Reb Moshe Tzuriel was cut off, but with Reb Moshe Tzuriel, I would take people to Reb Moshe, and Reb Moshe would ask them, where are you right now? Where are you within your chinuch? Where are you within your marriage? Where are you within parnasa? And based on their answer, if their answer went one particular way, he would say, it pains me to say you shouldn't come yet because it won't be good for your shalom bayis, it won't necessarily be good for your chinuch. And to be aware of that, baalei das. And even our Torah without das, our Torah without a proper mahalach of how to understand Torah can hurt us. It can hurt us. And as Dain Lopian would say, that as a person who's giving advice through the lens of Torah, our goal is to give people clarity. Our goal is to allow people to feel good in life. Something so important. Not to lock people in, not to asphyxiate people, not to give people false hopes. And Dain Lopian and the Baalei Rebbe, I discussed a lot. I wrote a book on how to make aliyah. And to remember that people use the term aliyah, but really, somebody who moves from one place to another place, what are they? An immigrant. And it hurts people when I say that. But the fact is, there's a lot more healthy research on how an immigrant can come from one place to another place than how somebody making aliyah can make aliyah. And we have to look at the data. We have to look at how the human being works and to realize that we are immigrants. I'm less of an immigrant. My father's Israeli. I've been coming here since I was 4 months old. But there's people who moved to Eretz Yisrael and they're immigrants. Making aliyah means you're an immigrant. It happens to be you're an immigrant to your homeland, but it doesn't take away the fact that you're an immigrant. And you are going to be an immigrant for a very, very long time. Maybe your children will fit in a little bit more. Maybe your grandchildren will fit in. But the fact is we have to be ever so careful. And the reason why I bring this up is because people are very good speaking about the front end. Excitement, everyone should come to Eretz Yisrael, everyone should live in Medinat Yisrael, which, okay, very nice. Only now, I wrote this book, I can't remember, I think it was 2014 I wrote this book. And there's two parts to it. The first part is more of a hashkafic part, and the second part is very, very, very practical. So at that time, Baruch Hashem, I was zeicha, and before that, all the research, speaking to the Baalei Rebbe, speaking to Reb Moshe Shapira, speaking to Rav Avadia Yosef, about this whole process. And people are very good speaking about the front end. Excellent, come to Eretz Yisrael, this is where it is. Then less. Now it became a lot more, but that time there was nothing about how you actually stay here. Ideas to actually stay here. And then two things, which again, people, I still don't see much today. What happens if somebody needs to go back to Chutz La'aretz? An exit plan. And I don't hear people speaking about it. And again, the Masorah that I received is you have to be able to help somebody in every stage of their life. And if somebody, for whatever reason, needs to go back to Chutz La'aretz, tam v'das, done in a proper, dignified way. And I'm shocked that so many people don't think about this. Obviously, it's human nature. That's why we know the difference between noise and truth. Truth allows you to take everything into consideration. Emes, when we take the word emes, you have aleph, mem, and taf. Baalei Rebbe would say, truth needs to take everything into consideration, the beginning, middle, and end. And this nakuda of being a baal das, as in the geula process, obviously it's really important, because what can happen so easily is that we fall into the noise, we have these crazes, and then before we know it, we have hundreds and hundreds of people who are deeply hurting. They are hurting, and there's no one to speak to. There's no one to speak to because institutes haven't been created to allow people to have an exit plan to go back to Chutz La'aretz if they need to. And now, as I said, now it's becoming a little bit better from the nation, from within the nation, that a lot of people have set up different sorts of organizations and WhatsApp groups to gift people to stay in Eretz Yisrael. But it's not easy. And a baal das takes everything into consideration. A baal das looks at the biggest possible picture. A baal das takes into consideration all the ups and the downs, the ins and the outs, the ebbs and the flows. And we remind ourselves that there's a world of nefesh, there's a world of ruach, and das is in ruach, and then you've got the world of neshama. And it's a very, very simple algorithm that we have these soul parts and we want to become more aligned. And as we become more aligned, I can experience emunah, which is my frameworks of thinking. I look at the world a certain way. I train myself to look at the world a certain way. Bitachon, I feel safe in my body. I feel safe. I can remind myself, look at this. I'm not feeling safe. My heart rate is going faster. My blood pressure has gone up. I'm feeling some sort of anxiety, but I know it's not me. I know, okay, can I shake it? Can I breathe into it? Can I breathe into it, a longer exhale, and start to mitigate and let go? And devekus, can I breathe in Hashem and shine Hashem's light into my nefesh? The nakuda of das and the nakuda of recognizing the wisdom of Torah shared in the right way helps us in life. It helps us, and as we said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us a beautiful world to live in. Really. And that's a belief that we should hold. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us a beautiful world to live in. And he asked us, based on the Medrash, don't destroy it. And as Rabbi Nachman says, if we can destroy, for sure, we have to believe that we have the koyach to heal. And we do. And that's our quest. That's our quest. So before we go weiter, any questions that people wanted to ask on what we've just shared? The Sfarim, Beseder. So where we're up to today is that we're bridging, and this is something very important to take note of, and this is something that ultimately we want to be living with, that it's not just about the me, it's about the we, it's not just about the I, it's about the us. When we're speaking about our personal growth, and in the Derech HaChaim program, or the Sefer HaChaim program, Sefer HaChaim is it's based on the whole Mahalach, it's based on our whole Derech of avodah, and Sefer HaChaim is it's a journaling process which asks 6 questions on all of these areas within the Mahalach, within the Derech of avodah. So remember, we have within the Derech of avodah the Arbi Yesodus. We call them the Arbi Yesodus, life fundamentals. Is the first one is to do with breathing, second is to do with, or that's physical health actually. The first is physical and financial health, the second is relationships, the third is knowledge, and the fourth is spirituality, guidance and spirituality. So we ask 6 questions. What do you want this particular area to look like? Or actually, that's not the first question. First question is, what do I believe about it? And I want to create the best possible beliefs about this nakuda. What do I want to believe about it? What do I want it to look like? What's my vision of it? Why do I want it to look like that? What's my emotional resonance? What are the steps that need to happen to get there? What happens if there are obstacles in the way? And the 6th question is, how do I celebrate my wins? 6 questions on every aspect of the Derech of avodah, and you write it out and you discuss it. We do it in chaburas. And one thing that's really important, and one area that we have that's not mentioned in what we've shared so far, but the nakuda is what we call ecological check. What's an ecological check? Is that my avodah, my personal growth, is not limited just to me. And this is something that I find time and time again, that when people are growing, I've fallen into this. I think at some point, anyone who takes their growth seriously has fallen into this. So I'm growing, I'm working on myself. I'm learning Pnimis HaTorah, I'm steiging, I'm growing, I'm inspired. What about my spouse? Say, for example, they're not on the same page. What about the children? I want to, at the Shabbos table, make Kiddush. That's it. No, I want to, the Shabbos table, make Kiddush, and there's like things being thrown around and fighting. What do? I want to make Kiddush b'kavana. Or for example, I want to tell over stories. I want to be involved in like stories, and I imagine the Shabbos table is the prime time to do that. What am I doing? Where am I in context to the rest of my family? Personal growth and working on becoming closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'daveikus emunah and bitachon. The ecology check is, where am I in context to who I am around? Or where am I in context to the place that I am within? What do I need to take note of? So how many couples or families I've spoken to where, for example, one party was growing and steiging, going to Shiurim, and the other one was not? So it's very easy, and we've mentioned this before, when we're becoming more baalei das, it's very easy. Okay, I'm relating to my thoughts, feelings, and physical sensations. I'm relating to my thoughts in the present moment. I know I'm not my nefesh. I know that I'm consciousness. Okay, so I'm working within myself. But then somebody says something, you're relating to your thoughts, it's not real. We very much can egocentric ties, I don't know if that's the word, but we very much can fall into our nefesh without realizing and then take it out on other people. That's why das comes with rachamim. You look at Rabbi Nachman, he brings a number of times the nakuda of the tzaddik, the nakuda of the tzaddik. Tzaddik is a bechina of das and can come into a place and build that place, give space to that place, rachamim. And then when they leave, this is the ikar avodah, that the light doesn't diminish, but the light can hold because people are encouraged enough to stand up on their own 2 feet. And when you're growing, you need to take into consideration everyone else. Because ultimately, as we mentioned, there's 3 tekufas. There's a tekufa of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. There's a tekufa of Noach, where they were individuals. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, I don't want to give my Torah to individuals. I want to give my Torah to a nation. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives the Torah to a nation. That's the second stage. The third stage is now we have to create a unity, an achdus within us. So first stage is the realization there were individuals and they were very high. They were people who worked on themselves. And that wasn't good enough for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to share the Torah with them. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we had to go through a process to become baalei das after Mitzrayim, where we were kaitzer ruach, and we come into the world of the Midbar, and from the world of the Midbar, we stand at Har Sinai, and ish echad and lev echad. And then we receive the Torah. By the way, after Chet HaEgel, what are we left with? We're left with the Torah, and we're left with ish echad and lev echad. That's what we're left with. Pre and post Chet Adam, we have to ask what we are left with. Pre and post Chet Egel Hazav, what are we left with? We're left with Torah and we're left with Ish Echad and Lev Echad. So when we grow, our growth should not be just about me. Again, the I to us, the me to we. That it's about the bigger picture. And it's not easy. It isn't easy. And we need to do what we call an ecology check. The ecology check is where I take note. Where am I pushing too much? Where maybe am I not pushing enough? Where am I becoming too distant? Where are we going separate ways where we shouldn't go separate ways? These are real conversations. For Rabbi Singer, for going back to Dayan Lopian was very, very, very makpid on this. Dayan Lopian was very, very makpid that families or individuals within families become baalei tshuva, and what happens is that one spouse may grow far quicker and more intensely than another spouse, and it affects halacha, obviously. And Dayan Lopian worked tiresomely to create harmony, balance and harmony. And he would say very often, I remember I would take couples to him and they love each other. They've got brilliant shalom bayis, really. And Dayan Lopian would turn to the husband, excuse me, can I just remind you, your wife didn't buy into this, or your husband didn't buy into this. You've become now this spiritual junkie and you're growing, and you're married and you have a good relationship and you have children. You think HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to destroy your home? No. Your wife didn't buy into it, so hold your horses. Let's speak about it. Let's figure out how to grow together. Ecological check. So in our avodah here, when we're speaking about das and we're speaking about this nakuda of going beneath and attuning and then going beneath, that there is a beneath and we're finding ourselves, and das is our inheritance and the intellect cannot grasp das. These are very high ideas, and hopefully we could learn to experience them by surrendering. But one thing that we should not do is make them egocentric. And this is something very important to think about, that sometimes, as we mentioned based on Rabbi Nachman, your growth is very personal, and sometimes it is to remain very personal. You have to know to do your Torah avodah in Gemilos Chasadim in your Daled Amais, and you have to give space for others to be. Not everyone's going to be like you. When a person, again, you should know this already. It's like I'm keeping Torah mitzvahs, and then this flood of thoughts come up because you see somebody different than you. What do you do with that? I'm relating to my thinking in the present moment. That's not me. That's not them. The more we become baalei das, we want to become baalei rachamim. Rachamim and das work hand in hand. We want to be able to give space. But more than that, when I'm working on my own das, my wanting is that anything and everything that I work on becomes a tefillah for the rest of my family, the rest of Am Yisrael, and the rest of the human species. Anything and everything that I'm working on becomes a tefillah and the echoes and reverberates throughout all of society. Not to change. Not like, oh, change. But just HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you see fit how you use this energy. Because that's really what it is. I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know. You don't know. We don't know. There's a lot that we don't know. But what I do know is HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows. So I can have a tefillah when I'm working to develop my das, when I'm working on myself, tikkun hamidais. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you are big, the Torah is big, and this world is big. And as I work on myself, I give you this energy. Please see fit how you use this and use it, my tefillah, to make the world a better place. You know how. That's it. I don't have to manipulate. I don't have to control. And even within my mishpacha, ecological check. Where am I in context to other members of my family? Am I turning my avodah that's meant to be an avodah of anava, humility, an avodah of shiflus, but being the melech? We want to be the melech. We want to be the malkah. We for sure want to be the melech. We want to be the malkah. And if you take the osiyos of melech, mem, lamed, chaf, is moach, leiv, and kaved. Alignment, yashar, yediyah, shmi, and re'iyah. Hashem Yisbarach created the world aligned and yashar. Melech, and malka. To be the leader. But what's the difference between a warrior and a leader? A warrior who is a king, a queen, and a warrior, they kill. A warrior who is a king or queen, they want to help life propagate. They want to allow people to live. So the difference between a warrior and a king who is a leader is that the king, even with their enemies, act differently to a warrior who act with their leaders. And we want to be a melech, we want to be a malkah, we want to be aligned. And as the Kuzari says, we want to take into consideration the gestalt. So I become the tefillah. I want to become the tefillah, to be a conduit, to be a vessel, to megala HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the world, through me being strong, through me being healthy. But everything that I do is connected to the klal, caring for the klal. And it doesn't matter what we do. B'chol darchei chudeu is what? Everything and anything that I'm doing. By Talmidei Baal Shem Tov, they worked. And it was Chalil v'chas, never looked down upon. By Talmidei Baal Shem Tov, because b'chol darchei chudeu, that when they worked, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu was here. But in my work, this energy is for the rabbim. This energy is for the rabbim. That's how we should be thinking. And this goes back to the fundamental truths that we have shared, that when we're speaking about how we should be living, there's 4 dargas. And people, this is a conversation I had with the Shulmans, Mr. Shulman brought this out, and it's a very important nakuda, that when people speak about the Geula process, people speak about when's Moshiach coming. That's not the question. The question is, when are we coming? Moshiach's waiting. That dimension, that portal is already open. When are we turning up? The question is a different question. Not when Moshiach is coming, but when are we coming? When are we turning up? When are we evolving? Everything's in place. The Lubavitcher Rebbe already said this many years ago. Everything is already in place. We have to turn up. What is our turning up? To become more baalei das, to be beings of recognizing that my avodah here is to be similar to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Of course, to have boundaries, but the Abrahamic vision, caring, sharing, supporting, and encouraging. Kapshutai. I keep my halachas, b'kedusha and b'tahara, going to the mikveh, building myself, eating b'kavana, working b'kavana, b'chol darchei chudeu. And what I want is to be a being of energy where Hashem can shine through me. I am the shofar. You are the shofar. Hashem is blowing me. And I could recognize that. B'devekus, emunah, bitachon. And I could shine out Hashem's light. And what is Hashem's light? That my growth is a universal growth. My redemption is your redemption. And that everything and anything that I'm doing is a tefillah for Am Yisrael. A tefillah that the Shekhinah should rest on us in a more revealed way than less revealed way. That one by one we could become more baalei das. And with what we're about to read, I mentioned this before, I mentioned this at the beginning of this text. This was my own self-discovery. So one thing that I heard in avodah sfarim, whether Chassidus, whether Kabbalah, was that there is a beneath. There is a beneath. And we started with the words, when we look out at the world, things appear very distinct. For example, right now I'm looking at a white plate with a metal spoon resting on a wooden table with a velvet tablecloth, so on and so forth. That there's a world that I see with my eyes, but then there's a beneath and a beneath and a beneath. And what happens is that sometimes I can get caught up in the superficial. I can get caught up in what the eyes just see, which as well is an aspect of MS. But the MS is, we've said this time and time again, more importantly is how I am looking at something than what I am looking at. So I needed to prove to myself. And what happened is, through proving to myself, I looked at the world of science. And fundamentally, going further beneath, if you imagine a line representing the surface of life, we go through this process. Science has discovered molecules, etc., atoms. So here in social coherence, it was the same sort of reality for me. That I was reading papers, and the nakuda is that when looking at all the secular books I read, I see this lavush. It's like, oh wow, look at this. This is really interesting. And the nakuda is a very, very deep nakuda. It's true to say everything is in Torah, but sometimes we don't have the eyes to see it. It was interesting, we spoke a number of months ago, somebody actually wrote an article on this. That they sent it to me this morning. I didn't finish reading it, but they wrote about how, when speaking about the rabies vaccine, the chiddush of the rabies vaccine was to give somebody part of the infected dog. And I mentioned a number of years ago, I have a whole set of shiurim about science and interesting points within science. It's not like proving anything. Please don't misquote me here. It's not about proving anything. It's just interesting nakudas. And the Gemara in Pesachim, I believe, is it in Pesachim? Yuma, I think it's the Gemara in Yuma, speaks about how if somebody got bit by a dog with rabies, they should give them the part of the dog to eat. That's what Chazal say. And it was very interesting that there's actually a sefer in Lashon HaKodesh that was showed to me, I think it was Rabbi Twersky showed this to me, that the person who created, I've forgotten his name now, but he created the vaccine for rabies, and he created other things as well. He actually read a translation of the Gemara. There was a Yid in France who was translating the Gemara, and he went with that idea. It was very, very fascinating. But the point is that when you learn, you have to learn with tam v'das. If a person's going to read secular books, obviously you have to learn tam v'das, because you have to have the right eyes to see what's being said, because there's a lot that is incorrect, especially, for example, from a Yiddish perspective, and you have to be able to filter. So what happened is I was reading these journals, and I found some very interesting evidence where, for me, it was just an interesting metzius. It's like, oh wow, look at that. And I added this in. This is summer of 2015, but when was this written? 2007. So I went back and I added this in. And this took me on a little journey, which we're going to go into now. So I know we give our hagdamas. I'm hoping that our hagdamas, we've got a text here, and I'm free to share and talk a little bit more openly, more be'ien on these texts, and hopefully it builds it out. If you just want to read the text, you can read the text. And also on the YouTube, there's going to be a set of shiurim. There's a set of shiurim which is just really the text in a very, very straightforward way. Each chapter is about 10 to 12 minutes. So where we are up to, social coherence. Added in the summer of 5775, 2015. Where was I? I think I was in London. when I was reading this. So Al Masorah indicates that when an individual puts in the work to live from a state of das, it affects the living. Sorry. Okay. Al Masorah indicates that when an individual puts in the work to live from a state of Daat, the effect on living from Daat will reach others around them. I recently read a paper published in a social science academic journal that gave a number of language to this phenomenon. I will introduce this language here because it is very clear. It's a very clear way to illustrate through a modern lens what the sages have taught. So again, remember, Chevra, this was my diary. This was Yoshua Gerzi processing and reading, and maybe it'll be helpful to us as well. The paper introduced the term of social coherence, defined as a stable, harmonious alignment of relationship that allows for effective flow and utilization of energy and communication required for optimum collective cohesion and action. Now, this is something. This sounds messianic. This sounds very messianic, that we can work on ourselves to such a degree that we affect one another, and what we will see, we affect one another by not even interacting with somebody, but we affect one another, and this is something which is real. When Torah comes up with a truth that then is later found in Torah through the world of science, we have to chapshat. Torah is the blueprint of the universe. So thinking people will come up with, at some point in time, universal truths. It's not chalil v'chasa pagam on the Torah that, we didn't find it. It shows the truth. When we speak about the world of sciences and the world of psychology and the evolution of psychology, I remember speaking to the baalei Rebbe. The baalei Rebbe charged me. He says, go learn these books on psychology and learn these books on philosophy. Why? Because what you will find, mamash like a navi, what you will find is people will need a language. Baalei tshuva, it's very abstract for people. They'll need a bridge. You're going to create those steps of the bridge. This is close to 20 something years ago. And the Rebbe pushed me, and Rabbi Yitzchak Shapira actually gave me a yichud, shem sag. He gave me a yichud. Any time that I was going to be learning anything secular, there's a yichud, there's shem sag, you mechaven on a certain shem to help my mind process, to help my filter and my das be very awakened as I'm studying. As well, he said, Shem Sag was a burin in the Netzosis Kedusha that you can extrapolate and you can gather and elevate the Netzosis Kedusha in what you are learning. Pardon? Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac Shapira. He did not learn any secular. I don't believe he learned any secular. He mamash kuloi Torah.
Any particular nakudas?
Pardon?
On the shem?
Well, it's bina. It's bina. So it's nakuda of bina, nakuda of das. So, okay. So, sorry. Okay, back to the text. When individuals are not self-regulated or are acting in their own interests without regards to others, it generates social incoherence, stressful or discordant conditions in a given group act to increase emotional stress among its members, and it leads to a social pathologic such as violence, abuse, inefficacy, and increased errors. So very simple emes, very simple emes, very simple truth. When we are baalei das, and when we can self-regulate, and when we can give space, and when we are happier within ourselves, living with more self-esteem and more self-confidence, and I'm thinking about others, I've got the other person, how can I better be of service? Like Rav Ashlag, there's these 4 stages. There's receiving to receive, there is giving to receive, giving to give, and receiving to give. The first stage of receiving to receive is like a child. And yes, it's true to say in life we come into these places where I just need someone to look after me like a child. It's very normal. We experience it as we grow up, but we experience as well as an adult. But then we've got giving to receive, where I do something to receive a pras, like a child, but as well like an adult. There's many things that we do because we get something in return. And then we've got giving to give. Giving to give is what all of us can start to tap into. It's the nakuda of just being open and looking for opportunities to give, looking for opportunities to better other people's lives, to make the space I am in a better space. Rav Wolbe would say that a lot of people speak about self-confidence. There's not a lot of self-confidence, or there's a struggle or a crisis with self-esteem and confidence. Self-esteem and confidence. He says, I don't know how accurate that is. What I see is people lack mission and purpose. When people have mission and when people have purpose, already things change inside. Self-esteem and confidence is very internal. When you open up your eyes for altruism, when you look outside and see, where can I be useful? How can I be useful? How can I better the space I am in? How can I better the people's lives around me? I move from receiving to receive, giving to receive, to giving to give. Then I could shift into atzilus, which is receiving to give. So the more that we are balanced, healthy in ourselves and giving to give, obviously it changes anything and everything around us. When I'm not living like that, when I'm living from a place of selfishness, then it hurts everything and anything around us. Make sense? Beginning in the 1970s, a number of studies were conducted to measure the power of social coherence. Participants practiced a coherent, creating Transcendental Meditation, TM program. Transcendental meditation, don't go into it, don't look at it. Since I wrote this, there's a lot of major issues with it. We have other variations of it, just to be aware of that. Baruch Hashem. Not good stuff. A lot to speak about on it, but I just want to put that disclaimer out. So before and during this coherent creation phase, researchers collected statistics from the surrounding communities for comparison. So basically what happened, they took a group of people who were practicing this form of meditation, and through the practice of this form of meditation, another nakuda that they did was they were looking at the society, and they were looking at the particular spaces, the communities that they were in, and they took stats, and what they wanted to see obviously is what happened beforehand and what happened afterwards. The results included evidence that this meditative exercise by small groups of participants, about 1% of the total population of the area, was associated with a significant decrease in violence and crime, overall crime rates, traffic accidents, and fires in the surrounding communities. What they saw, and I'm not fully sure I don't remember now how they did the comparison, but what they saw, where they set up these small groups, there was a definitive change. And they did it in many places, not just one place. They did it in many, many, many places. So in our Beis HaMedrash, when we do our avodas, tefillah avodas, you came to some of them, Nachon? Yeah, and you came to some of them. You came to the tefillah avodas. So this nakuda that one of the tzaddikim said for us to do, Rav Alfasi and others, when they suggested it, obviously there's already a Messiah. We have a Messiah that you take a few people that work on themselves, and a few people that daven and meditate and reflect and see clearly or hear clearly, contemplate geula, contemplate achdus, contemplate integration, collaboration and contribution. It changes the outside world. A few people can really change a lot. Numerous studies have been published using various scientific and statistical methodologies, and the Maharashi effect, this was the person that started or brought to the West this TM, named after the creator of the specific TM program, being used, was replicated across many cultures, political backgrounds and seasons. The growing repertory of evidence suggests that when a small when a small percentage of communities constantly work towards living more mindfully, the entire community benefits from the greater social coherence. After reading this paper, I am reminded of the teaching of Rabbi Singer that the individual directly impacts the collective. The Chevra, when we're speaking about our avodah, we're now shifting from the self. The journey begins, and the first part of the awakening speaks about you, how you work. And again, we're just touching on something in a very superficial way. But now what we are doing, we're transitioning. We're transitioning into something much broader. And that is your redemption is our redemption. My redemption is your redemption. As the Ropshitzer says, a change anywhere is a change everywhere. I'm going to mention this. But this nakuda is so important, that you matter. You matter. Your avodah matters. Everything and anything that you do, it matters. What you think matters. What you feel matters. How physically you hold yourself, it matters. Don't become pressurized by this. Because Baruch Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a baalei rachamim. Don't become pressurized. Live normally. But you can say in the beginning of the day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're big. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I know that everything and anything that I go through is hashgacha pratis. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please allow all the energy that I wield when I'm picking up the kids, when I'm learning, when I'm speaking to friends on the phone, allow that energy to really, really uplift Am Yisrael, to uplift our species, because you and I make a difference. You and I make a difference. And these should be words of encouragement. These should be words of encouragement, not pressure. These should be words to uplift us, not bring us down. These should be words to create a definitive reality that I am in a healthy way it. I am the revelation of godliness in the world. I'm the vehicle. Shouldn't block us up. Should help us connect. B'devekus emunah bitachon. And this is something very real. This is something very, very real. And in our dor, where we are in our generation, you can understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. Because I'm caring very much for the whole species. And when, for example, my teacher said to me, start recording these videos. When I asked the shaila, or I didn't actually ask the shaila, someone pushed me into asking the shaila, but when I came and asked and brought these, brought this as a shaila, they said 100% you're mechuyev, because if one person can have one thought for one moment to realize how important and precious they are, and they can say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, take my avodah. I know it's nothing crazy, but take what I do in the most simplest way and just give it to everybody. Share it. That's worth everything. That's makar of the Geula. And when we speak about the Geula, when we speak about the process of Geula, we are to be involved. We shouldn't just be waiting around. It's not when Moshiach is coming. When am I turning up? When are we turning up? What's the quality and intention of us turning up? And when we speak about these dargas that once upon a time for thousands of years have been a non-conversation, Ruach HaKodesh and Nevuah, these are conversations today. We're living in a generation where Ruach HaKodesh and Nevuah is open to us. But if we don't have the conversations of what it is, what are the steps to get there? How does it look? How does it sound? What's the experience of it? For sure, it's going to be like, oh yeah, those people, those tzaddikim, of course, it's not for me, it's for them. No, look at the Makairas, the whole nation. We're going to be baalei Ruach HaKodesh and we're going to be Nevi'im. And why is it important? This is the second question. Why should I care about Ruach HaKodesh? Why should I care about Nevuah? Why? On one level, on the level that we're speaking about now, it does two things. Number one, it lets me make better choices in the present moment. Why should I care about Ruach HaKodesh? And you'll be shocked when you look at the Makairos, Rambam, Mor Nevuchim, the Rabbeinu Bachia, and others. You'll be shocked when we look at the Makairos. Most people have experienced the first two dargas of Ruach HaKodesh. In the Chaburas, the Chevra that are experiencing already the latter, the more advanced dargas, the higher, more abstract dargas of Ruach HaKodesh. It's something that's real for us. But if we do not speak about it, it's not good news because we don't know basic things that we should know. And the other nakuda, when we're living from a place of das, which is the peticha, it's the opening to what we call ruach hakodesh and nevuah, done properly with kedusha and tahara. Again, the statement that the yid asked on the WhatsApp, what's one thing that I can do to remind myself to get into a state of das? First of all, I'm relating to my thoughts in the present moment. That's it. You don't have to do any techniques. You don't have to do any exercises. You just have to know the moment I realize that, I'm a baldas and I've got this nefesh, which is a wonderful gift. And I can negotiate, and I don't even have to at times negotiate. I just have to say, I am not my thoughts in the present moment. I open up to something. No exercises, no this, no that, no the other. That changes me, but that change in me is affecting everything and anything around us. And more than that, we're shifting into our next stage of evolution. Our next stage of evolution as human beings, our next stage of evolution as a nation, our next stage of evolution as communities, our next stage of evolution as families, our next stage of evolution as an individual. And as we know, you change, your family changes, the community changes, the nation changes, the species change. Once, one of the tzaddikim was asked the question, what is it to be a tzaddik nista? What is it to be a tzaddik nista? This question was asked, or it was in a conversation with a couple of different tzaddikim, and the answer was given: radical responsibility. To be a tzaddik nista is radical responsibility. The tzaddikim take on the responsibility of growth because they know my geula is your geula. Your geula is my geula. As the Rav Shitzer says, if you want more rachamim in the world, become more a baal rachamim, a balas rachamim. If you want more chesed in the world, turn on the tap of chesed. Become more chesed. You are it. And you are it not from a perspective of ego. You are it not from a perspective of selfishness. You are it from a perspective of being a vessel. And we want to clean that vessel. And you, in your unique individuality, can allow Godlight to come through you, in you, and out of you. And we make a difference. We make a difference. So, Be'ezras Hashem, we're going to end here, and we'll take some questions. And just, again, now we're bridging, and it could be with a little ahead of ourselves. It could be, and I have said from the beginning, there is a more cerebral side, at least to the way we're sharing here. And it could be that you get this. It's like, it's you don't have to try so hard. You really don't. You don't have to try so hard. You hear something, take it with you. Take it with you, better your life and better the lives of ones around you. So let's take any questions of what we've discussed. Yes?
Can you remind me what the Rav said Melech stands for?
Moach, which is the mind, Leiv, which is the heart, and Kaved, which is the liver. It processes, it cleans the blood. That's to do with Tikkun Hamidos, Cheshbon HaNefesh. Yeah?
And it reminds me what you were saying of the story, I forget which Hasidic Rebbe it was, who said he wanted to change the world. He said, I'll just change, that was too much, I'll just change my city, and that was too much, I'll just change my community. I'll just change my family, it was still too much. He said, I'll just change myself.
Yeah. The Sanzer Rebbe and the Steipler. Sanzer Rebbe and the Steipler. Steipler came from a place called Honosteipel, and his family were Hasidim, and they were originally sons of Hasidim. And the story they say is from the Sanzer Rebbe, that I wanted to change the world, I can't change the world, I'll change my community. I wanted to change my community, I tried, I couldn't, I'll change my family. I couldn't change my family, I realized I can only change myself. But when I do change myself, whoa, makes the biggest difference. Makes the biggest difference. Any other questions? Do you feel that we are shifting? I'm trying to repeat and do chazara, but every single time to push that little bit more. Did we push a little bit more today? Showing and opening up how it's a system that is fully inclusive in developing consciousness, not just to do with you, but now we're speaking about Achdus. We're speaking about the mechanics that we can tap into. Our normative thinking, here they were just meditating. For us, it's important to know whatever we do, however we're doing, we could just say a tefillah, that's making a shift. So, okay, l'chaim, and be'ezras Hashem, we should mamash go from strength to strength. In a moment, we're going to break up into our groups, and Chevra online, take a moment, what did you hear? What works for you? What works for you? What is helpful to you? And be'ezras Hashem, absorb it, live it, and better your lives, because you deserve it. And same with the Chevra here. In a minute, we're going to break up, and as we break up, just share what are the key points that are resonant to us, that are going to help us. Beseder.